Okay, today I'm going to be talking about Golden Sun, which if you don't know is the second installment in the Red Rising trilogy by Pierce Brown. I'd recommend, if you haven't read Red Rising, which is the first book in the trilogy, to stay away from this video as it will contain some spoilers. However, I'm going to break this up into, like, the first half of the review will be non-spoiler. So if you haven't read this already, feel free to stick around, and then the second half will likely be more spoilers, getting in to it in a little bit more detail. And I'll make sure to, at that halfway point, whenever I do start to switch over to spoilers, to make it very obvious and let you guys know a few times that spoilers are coming. So don't worry there. But overall, I loved this book. I thought it was, especially when compared to Red Rising, it was much better in my opinion. I did like Red Rising, but I liked it a lot. I don't know if I loved it. And it did have some flaws that I wasn't a big fan of, which I won't go into there. Like I said, if you haven't watched my review for that yet, I would recommend go checking that out. But I was a little bit skeptical, maybe is too strong of a word, because I know just from watching other booktubers and other reviews that I've seen, I knew that the Red Rising trilogy is supposed to just continue to get better and better, and by and large, everyone who had their hesitations about the first book said that Golden Sun more than makes up for it. So I knew I had that in mind, but I still, had some of my own. I was still a little bit skeptical. Especially the way this first started, and this isn't a spoiler, you learn about this, in the first few pages, but Pierce Brown made the decision to jump a couple years in time from the end of the Red Rising book, which at first I was a little bit, not upset, that's too strong of a word, but a little bit, I don't love when authors do that, because part of the joy is kind of like, and especially since I'm mostly an epic fantasy reader, I love all of the little details. So I almost feel robbed or hard done by when authors, skip forward in time and then, you're being brought up to speed kind of in the first third of the book is what I'd say. So I didn't love that decision. However, once you get into it, it's nothing unforgivable. And now that I've, finished the book, that's such a small criticism that I have that I would not, that's very forgivable in my opinion. I can see how it makes sense in the context of the story, and I understand why he did it. He needed to push the plot along. And then, like I said, guys, for prose, I'm someone who, I'll say this in almost every review I do, I should really stop saying it, but as long as I don't notice it, because the prose are so bad, that's all I really care about. I can appreciate beautiful prose. And I would say Pierce Brown does an above average job in that category. But yeah, not a major breaking point for me on any book I read, really. As long as I just don't notice, like, if I have to stop reading because the prose are so bad, obviously that's one thing. But you don't often see that in many published works. But yeah, overall, I'm really excited to read the third installment, Morning Sun. I won't get into the spoilers, but you're kind of, if you have read it, you know that the ending of it, it is very, clear that, it's taking a really exciting direction, the way the story's going. And just overall in this book, it totally got away from Red Rising. One of the major criticisms I have, and most people have, is that it was almost kind of a rehash or a revisiting of Hunger Games, and a little bit more adult than Hunger Games. But nevertheless, you definitely saw that Pierce Brown, maybe not borrowed, but took inspiration from that series. And this totally, for me anyways, got away from that. Doesn't mirror Hunger Games at all at this point, other than the fact that, you have a sci-fi, where the lower classes of society are trying to rise up. I was really happy about that because that was my real main criticism. And then the other thing I really loved about this book is you get to, as you'd expect in the second installment, but you just get to know the characters more deeply. You start to understand their motivations, especially Darrow. In Red Rising, he kind of was just this stereotypical, maybe not chosen one, but almost like a chosen one from the lower class that has to put the weight of an entire class of society on his back. And the motivations felt a little, I don't know, I didn't have much attachment to him. I didn't feel very passionate about it, but I'd say Golden Sun does an excellent job of kind of, you really learn more about Darrow, and you get to know and understand him more. And just overall, where I was a little bit disconnected in Red Rising from him, I wasn't as invested. Golden Sun does a really, really good job of, making the reader, at least for me, way more invested in Darrow and the other characters in general. So just another big, big positive. At this point, I am going to switch over to spoilers, and I'm going to keep this section short, but if you have not read it, this is your spoiler warning. So click off the video now if you have not read Golden Sun. But anyways, obviously the big elephant in the room is the ending. Most people will compare it to the Red Wedding, and it definitely has that feeling to it. I thought it was a great twist. You could kind of, I don't know if you'd call it a twist, because it still caught me by surprise, but you knew everything was going kind of too well. You knew it was going to take a turn, kind of in that last 40 or 50 pages. It's like, okay, but there's this underlying impression of, something is going to go wrong, left with the son of Ares, obviously his head literally on a plate. So, and Darrow, who's poisoned, and I haven't started the third book at all, but obviously I assume he does end up dying, but he's poisoned to the point where you're under the impression that he's on the brink of death and is going to die. So, obviously, I think Golden Sun's ending is extremely strong. It undoubtedly makes you want to continue reading. And, like I said, unlike Red Rising, I think you're invested enough in all the characters in Golden Sun, where the deaths you do see at that Red Wedding type event, they are impactful and meaningful. And yeah, I was left with, a sense of shock. Like, I remember telling my wife after I put the book down, and she doesn't do much reading, so I wasn't afraid to spoil it for her. But I kept telling her, I'm like, so many people died. I just spent all Sunday a couple weeks ago finishing this up, like binging it for 6 or 7 hours. And afterwards, I kind of just set the book down. I was like, oh my gosh, so many people died. I did not necessarily see that coming. So obviously, Pierce Brown did an amazing job with the ending of this book, and I'm really, really curious to see how the final book in the trilogy, Morning Sun, finishes up, because with an ending like this one, I'm hoping to get some satisfaction and maybe a little justice to the conclusion of the third one. So I'm really, really excited for it. And then overall, I don't know if I want to do ratings like necessarily for my book reviews, but this was definitely a strong entry. I am trying to read more science fiction this year. I'm not well read at all in science fiction, really. I've read Hunger Games, but to me that's more under the YA umbrella rather than sci-fi, even though that is very much sci-fi. But other than that, Red Rising was kind of my intro to the genre, and I have been really liking it. So really, really strong entry, and I think this is a good, and I can only speak from my own experience, but I think the Red Rising trilogy is a good entry point if you're trying to look into kind of dipping your feet into science fiction. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed my review of Golden Sun, and I hope you are enjoying the series overall. I assume the people that stuck around have already read it. But yeah, if you're looking forward to the Morning Sun review, let me know. I'll probably have that one wrapped up, I would say, in the next month or so, and get a review out for it then. So anyways, like, subscribe if you haven't already. I'll catch you in the next one.